It's Christmas, so I should be talking about happy things, yeah? But I did the positive list last week, so that really only leaves us with one task left to do before the end of the year. If you think that ending off 2016 by talking about something negative isn't all that fitting, you know you're wrong. I've seen a lot of programs that put their outtakes in their Christmas special. I don't have any outtakes though. After all these videos, I've gotten pretty good at saying... I said the wrong word. So 2016 was shit for a lot of reasons, but generally it was alright from a gaming perspective. Does that mean that there weren't any bad games? Oh, my sweet, naive summer child. I suppose blemishes are more obvious if everything surrounding it was pretty good, and with 2016 being one of the best years for gaming in recent memory, it just means that what went wrong sticks out so far that you can't not pay attention to it. Especially Metal Gear Survive. That game isn't even out yet and was effectively the only thing that Konami did this year, but I feel I have to mention it. Somehow I get the feeling that I'll be talking about it this time next year too. Let's stick to the now, there's enough to deal with here. Merry Christmas, you fucks. Establishing a dedicated fanbase can be as much of a hindrance as a benefit. After all, these people only got here off the back of one type of game, so it's not out of the realm of possibility that anything new might alienate them. The longer you leave it between titles, the more work you're giving yourself to make everyone happy. Star Fox went on a pretty big hiatus after whatever Star Fox Command was, but it finally made a triumphant return in 2016 in the form of Star Fox Zero, and, you know, there was plenty to be excited about. God damn optimism, it ruins everything. There's a fine line between appealing to fans and straight up pandering, and I feel like Star Fox Zero slips into the latter a bit. There's going off the beaten path, and then there's being so deeply integrated in the path that the game box might as well have been a slab of concrete. Star Fox Zero is effectively a poor man's Star Fox 64 roughly 2 decades later, and if that was the case, it wouldn't be so bad. Sadly, what was changed wasn't really to any great benefit. You got graphics that aren't really good enough for even the Wii U, which says a lot, and a control scheme that I swear to God didn't need to be this fiddly. Even if Nintendo wants to have this kind of double aiming cockpit view thing, give me an option to turn it off. It's like one last frothy gurgle from the twitching corpse of motion controls, and I fucking hate it. Honestly, the rest of the game isn't that bad for what is a retreading of Star Fox 64, and if the controls were modified I might have enjoyed myself more, but controls are quite a big part of your game. It's kinda hard to avoid it. I'm just hoping that Nintendo keeps Star Fox going, because handled correctly it could still be an important IP for them. Just try and move on from the past if you can. It's important to remember when thinking about Dark Souls that there's more to the series than just crushing difficulty. Once that starts to wear off, you start to take in the fascinating world around you and the lore that's there if you want to get invested in it. This notion of Dark Souls simply being a really hard game is a bit shallow, but I guess it's this idea that helped to spawn Slashy Souls, a mobile game with Bandai Namco's name in there somewhere, but crucially, not From Software's. Yeah, we don't need those guys, we'll be fine on our own, right? I've had a bit of a thing for demakes recently. Effectively, you take a modern game and you reimagine it in a 2D or 8-bit style. You tune down the graphics, you make the soundtrack some kind of amazing chiptune. There's no reason why you couldn't do this with Dark Souls. Unless, of course, you cut every corner and have no regard for what the finished product looks like. That's probably not a good idea. The good news is that Slashy Souls is free and was intended to promote Dark Souls 3, which is of course an infinitely superior game. The bad news is Slashy Souls still exists and still gives me aneurysms. Action games on phones with terrible controls are just asking to be thrown into a fire, and Slashy Souls would make some fine kindling. It's an endless runner, so you've got to move to the right whenever you can since there's this ominous black cloud trying to ruin your day, but fret not, because spending more than 10 minutes on this will probably do that anyway. And if we're looking into this more than we need to, why was this game made? To promote Dark Souls 3? I'd take a terrible advertising campaign over Slashy Souls any day of the week. That way I don't have to be directly involved. I suppose a benefit to a bad game is that if it comes from a franchise that has had a rocky couple of years, it might just help to redefine how low it can go in terms of quality. Although, maybe that reinforces the concern that certain franchises are going through a rough spot at the moment. Not Resident Evil though. It's starting to move beyond past problems and Resi 7 seems promising. Certainly feels far removed enough from Resi 6 that, yeah, maybe we're leaving behind all this unnecessary action. Although Capcom also released Umbrella Corps this year, and that game's a pile of shit. Not only that, but a pile of shit that Capcom tried to turn into an esport. Which might just be the funniest bit of news to come out of 2016. Puts every other esport into perspective when you see people trying to shoutcast over this train wreck of a game.
Contact! Alpha making the retreat, but his jammer's busted and he's...
It is not a pretty sight. I'm not sure Capcom could have tried harder to make Umbrella Corps look and play like the most generic shooter I've seen in years. Also, if you ever want a sign of how far from the tree Resident Evil has fallen, zombies are hilariously passive. Do you remember how terrifying Nemesis and the Regenerators were? Bring the horror back and kill the shoutcasters. The world will thank you.
Denied! You are dead!
Crazy! That's what they talk about when they talk about competitive shooters, Matt.
I'm sure there's an unwritten rule somewhere in this video that I can only talk about games that came out in 2016. Actually, it's not unwritten, it's in the titles. Kind of important, it's all powerful, all knowing, it sees everything. But if it takes a full year for a game to come out of Japan because they weren't bored enough to release it elsewhere, I think I can break that rule. You're telling me that you want to send a game to the West a full year after it came out knowing that it's bad? Okay then. So you remember how Fire Emblem made the leap from Japan to the rest of the world and everyone loved it? How they were able to build a revitalized franchise out of this success? Yeah, well, as much as we want it to, lightning doesn't usually strike the same place twice. Outside of a Final Fantasy game, am I right? Before 2016, the only Langrissa game to be given an official English localization was the first in 1991. Ever since, it's been those crazy fan people doing the work for them. For whatever reason, the latest game ended up over here a year later since localization takes time, but do you know what you should spend your time on? Making good video games. It might sound like a desperate attempt at making a comparison, but Langrissa Reincarnation is a very poor man's Fire Emblem. Like, if you had half an hour of experience in RPG Maker and thought that a tribute to your favourite franchise might be a fun challenge. But no, you're dumped into this world full of generic characters who aren't really introduced, but that's okay, because it leaves plenty of time for you to use characters who all have 10 HP to fight other characters who all have 10 HP. And okay, hold the phone. These are battle animations. There's a lot of great RPGs on the 3DS. If you ever find yourself playing this instead, someone out there dislikes you greatly. First new game in the series for 17 years. Reincarnation my arse. If they weren't already, open world video games are the next big trend for the market. It was shooter games from a variety of perspectives, but now developers are thinking, why don't we make levels really big and not at all spread really thin across a wide scale? As with every trend, it becomes obnoxiously saturated, and finding the good games is made a lot harder. Homefront the Revolution is not one of them. And that's really irritating because it should have been. I'm not sure what Dan Buster Studios have been doing for the last 5 years, but apparently the now defunct THQ was involved at some point, and you play this reboot which has an impressive level of detail but absolutely zero regard for functioning like a game. It ended up on 2 consoles and PC, and none of them can run it without massive frame rate issues, which is a pretty big problem when shooting guns and just moving around. Auto-saving freezes the game for 2 seconds, so at least you know it's happening. Even if you did iron out some of the technical problems, a lot of what you do is very repetitive and doesn't feel like you're contributing to anything in the game, and, you know, North Korea aren't that bad, surely. Play this game or succumb to our new tyrannical rulers. Give me a difficult choice next time. My favourite game of all time is Metal Gear Solid 3. Weird point to bring up in a video about terrible games, but I can make the loose comparison between this game and another game set in the world of Cold War espionage where no one can be trusted and stealth is paramount. This will also be the last time that someone compares Metal Gear Solid with Alekine's gun. otherwise I'll cut you. You'd be better off comparing Alekhine's Gun to Hitman, but that doesn't do this game a lot of favors. You can kinda see assets in the right place and how they might have worked if the game wasn't so buggy or if the AI wasn't brain dead, but you know, I guess it's okay. You'll either feel like the stealthiest stealth man who's ever stealthed through no talent of your own, since not a lot of this game works as intended, or you'll be shot in a crossfire and die in no time at all. I feel like if you give this a deliberately nonsensical story rather than this, and market it as a parody Cold War shooter, some of this might work. But as it is, it's probably unintentionally the funniest game I've played this year. I think it's pretty cheap now. It's probably worth it. It's worth remembering that even with all the terrible games that came out in 2016, I didn't immediately hate all of them. Of course, you look at them from a technical perspective and you find gaping holes pretty much everywhere, but something like Alekhine's Gun has a weird charm to it that didn't put me off in the same way as some other games. Like some other games that are yet to feature on this video. This positivity won't last long. I have very few complaints about reviving classic franchises as long as you're willing to compromise on some design choices. Might not always be the case, but have you ever thought that maybe games were lost to the ages because large parts of them don't translate well to what we expect from modern games? At that point, if you're trying to bring back something classic without thinking about improving it, you'll end up with Dino Dini's Kickoff revival, and immediately regret it. That's because in the decades that followed after Sensible Soccer and the Kickoff games from the days of the Amiga and top-down perspectives, football games have steadily gotten better, to the point where this year's FIFA had a fucking not instantly terrible story mode. You're asking nostalgia to do an awful lot here. Yet I feel like if they just re-released Sensible Soccer or Kickoff, it would have been fine. And it was. Did alright when people reviewed the Xbox 360 version. Sadly, the Kickoff Revival game doesn't do enough to improve the formula. The older games get a bit of a pass since they're old, but 30 years later and one button does everything except movement, and I wish for the sweet release of death. I attempt to do something else happens instead. Isn't that zany? Isn't that what video games are all about? Isn't that the true spirit of Christmas? God, I hope not. I adore Steam Greenlight. It's like fishing through a rubbish bin. Maybe you'll find something worth your time, but most of it will be a heaping mass of putrid crap like you'd expect. It's kind of okay since you know what you're getting into, but it's also inundated to near breaking point at this stage with games that probably shouldn't be there. I won't mention any this year since they're easy targets, but thankfully there's a more entertaining option called Soul Brain Night of Darkness. Strap yourself in, this game has stunning 3D graphics. You think you're ready, but you're not. Ladies and gentlemen, presenting Frankenstein's Monster, the video game. Soul Brain, which released on PSN this August, decided to do away with making their own assets and instead resorting to stealing them from sources that most people will recognize, which isn't a smart move. That's why you can spend 8+ hours looking at a character model ripped straight from Terra Online, who wields a large shield taken from Skyrim. Or you can watch this incredibly matter-of-fact trailer which talks about that also uses music from Ori and the Blind Forest, or maybe you can look at the logo that steals art from someone's DeviantArt page and font from The Legend of fucking Zelda. It's been taken down from the PlayStation Store, but for a few moments there you could pay money and download a gigabyte of whatever the hell this game is. Of course, since I'm not that much of an opportunist, I never got a chance to play it myself, but I really wish I did. Sometimes you need to play something truly awful to get a benchmark of how far some games have yet to slip. I'm sure you won't begrudge its place on this list even though I never played it. I doubt it was hiding anything. Apparently only 60 people downloaded it. That makes it rarer than Silent Hills. I feel like it's important to remember the background of each bad video game before taking them to task. You can usually see a difference between something made from misguided passion and something more disingenuous, even if it simply came about from a situation spiraling hopelessly out of control. If you can cast your mind back to 2013, there was a lot of optimism, that word again, surrounding the revival of a classic forgotten franchise, and with Keiji Inafune at the helm, there was no way that anything could go wrong with Mighty No. 9. Once the people at Concept had taken their fingers out of their asses and coughed up a game, most of the world wished they hadn't. Especially those anime fans on prom night. Fuck me, they had a really bad time, didn't they? I imagine some of them are Mega Man fans and may have contributed to the near $4 million Kickstarter. They didn't have the best year, really. Hopefully the world will forget about Mighty No. 9, but the massive amount of publicity it got on the story of one company basically pissing a couple dozen sacks of money up the wall will ultimately go down as a tale of scaremongering against Kickstarter games. Explosions look like cheap pizza, gameplay is annoyingly predictable, and do these look like $4 million worth of cutscenes to you? If you do one thing out of this, go play Mega Man 9 and 10. Capcom might not care about Mega Man anymore, but at least when they brought him back, they did so with due care and attention. If you ever see another game of Concept in the credits, run as far in the other direction as your little legs will carry you. Oh, they worked on Recall? Yeah, I'm sure that went well. Oh, come on! I find that with even the worst games around, you can squeeze a bit of fun out of them if you try hard enough. I don't know, there's just something ultimately kind of satisfying about playing something that you're not supposed to enjoy and getting some entertainment value out of it. Probably not in the majority there, but hey, I'm also probably not in the majority when I say that the worst game I played this year was No Man's Sky, but we've come this far. I'm sure as hell not gonna stop now. With any luck, this game should serve as a lesson to the dangers of overhyping a game too quickly and with virtually no information about the features of the game. Every game critic and half-baked YouTube gaming dickhead thought that No Man's Sky was the hottest shit to ever be shown at an E3 conference, and how this universe of procedurally generating planets would change how adventure games operate in the future. That is, if you want your adventure games to have virtually no content or hook to keep you playing, other than an inexplicable desire to explore planets that look mostly the same with stupid wildlife that carries no tangible long-term reward for discovering them other than expanding your personal encyclopedia so you can flick through this huge anthology of useless fucking knowledge. I didn't have fun with No Man's Sky. After the first 20 minutes, where it's more like a survival game, I don't even think I smiled while playing it. Even when the game glitches out beyond comprehension or crashes, I never thought, I spent this money wisely and not on, like, 5 cheap games on Steam. The lack of any real direction in this sandbox game without any sand is compounded further when you listen to the lies that came out of developer Sean Murray's face about multiplayer, the variety available in the game, and ecosystems. It spiraled out of control and got way out of hand, but even without the disappointment, I think I'd rather play Mighty No. 9 again. And no one's ever said those words before. This is RabbidLuigi, and while No Man's Sky is trying to implement something that resembles a video game, the damage has already been done. The lies surrounding No Man's Sky has helped to tarnish the game's reputation, the reputation of developer Hello Games, and especially the reputation of Sean Murray. Regardless of what they do in the future, we'll come back to this game and be reminded of what they are capable of. You've got so much space in your game. Have you ever thought about filling it with content? Hey guys, thank you for watching. Hopefully all this negativity hasn't ruined your Christmas, and if it has, lighten up, 'tis the season after all. This is of course my last countdown of the year since we've now run out of Sundays, and I just want to thank everyone who stuck by me this year. Pokemonth went much better than I thought it would, and despite YouTube's problems, it's been my best year in every way, so can't really thank you enough. Especially the fine people on Patreon. I've reached my goal and I can move to Canada, which I've wanted to do for a long time. It's just, everything's come together so well, and I'm very grateful. I'll be taking a week off after this just to decompress, but the countdowns will return on the 8th of January, and let's hope they're good. Have a very Merry Christmas, and I'll see all of you in the new year.